Hello, hello, my friends. It is Hondo, and welcome back to the Knights of the Nerd Republic. You know what to do, and stay profitable.
The Nerd Academy podcast is released weekly at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, available on our website at www.thenerdacademypodcast.com and wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find the Nerd Academy podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. You can also help support the show by going to patreon.com/The Nerd Academy podcast, where every donation allows us to bring you more exciting content every week.
Hello there, and welcome back to Knights of the Nerd Republic, the show where your favorite nerds sit down and talk all things from the galaxy far, far away. I'm your host, Jarod the Dark Jedi Bachman Stubbs, and joining me this week are very special guests, favorite YouTubers of mine, need no introduction. We are joined by Alex and Molly Damon of Star Wars Explained. Thank you guys so very much for stopping by.
Totally glad to be here.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. I know Connor was upset that I think he has a wedding today, so he wasn't able to make it for this one, unfortunately. But here in spirit. But yeah, we are here for the High Republic, the story so far, part 2. A couple months ago, we covered Light of the Jedi, Test of Courage, and Into the Dark with Jerry from Bombad Cast, and now we're here with Star Wars Explained, talking High Republic. So before we get into the thick of Wave 2 itself, just want to ask you guys, how are you enjoying the High Republic so far? How are we feeling about this? What I think is the truly the first like brand new piece of content we have gotten in the Disney era. There's been a lot of new stuff, but things that were kind of like, okay, well, this is kind of a given that we need this. This is an era that even in Legends was super vacant. How are we feeling about this new age of Star Wars content?
I was going to say that a good way to get me on
Whichever
a show
one you
is
guys want to
go. If you ever want to get me on a show, ask me to talk about the High Republic or Fallen Order. I'm all about both of those things. So I love the High Republic so far.
Yeah, I'm really digging it. You're right. It's a bunch of just like really brand new stuff, and that's what makes it so exciting. The time period is new. The Jedi that they're introducing in this time period are so cool, and like I don't know, just like every bit of writing that I've read in this time period so far has got me really excited and wanting more.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that this is just such a bright, shiny new era for Star Wars. The thing that I've said a lot, and granted, we're going to get into a little bit of how that part falls apart a little bit with Rising Storm in a good way, but that the High Republic Jedi truly feel like how I envisioned the Jedi as a kid. I grew up with the prequels, so even though yes, I had that era of the Jedi where they kind of had their problematic elements, all the reasons that the Jedi fell. There was that element of just like, oh yeah, like they're just these cool swashbuckling heroes. And as a kid, you don't understand this is what's wrong with them as an institution. And then you grow up, and then you have you kind of start to get that cynical read that you're kind of supposed to have with the prequels. And it's like, oh man, like they're cool, but this is deeply flawed, and no wonder it all fell apart at the seams. And then you open up like page 1 of Light of the Jedi. I was like, oh man, this is so heroic and wholesome and happy, and it just makes my heart happy just reading about these Jedi, reading about these characters. seeing the some of the newer talent writing some of it, or seeing people kind of like flip flop what they normally do. Having Charles Soule write the novels and Kevin Scott on the comics and vice versa, here and there. Here's a difficult question that might be a hard pick for you guys before we do jump into the books themselves from Wave 2. Favorite Jedi thus far?
Porter Engle is
Like I said, I'll submit that to the field. I
was going to point.
Okay.
I think we're dealing with a slight delay. Just throwing that out there.
Oh yeah.
We definitely are, and it's
but yeah, Porter Engle I think is my favorite of the era right now. He's someone who they always,
that's on my side.
They always leave you wanting just a little bit more, and I love that.
I'm still reading Out of the Shadows right now, but I'm really enjoying Vernestra. I love her character. I think she's really interesting. Yeah, but they're all good. They're all.
It's hard to choose. Like I really love Belle as well.
Yeah.
How are we gonna deal with spoilers here?
Well, for Out of the Shadows, if Molly, if you would like to bow out of that conversation, that is completely your call. It is going to be a spoiler-heavy conversation.
I don't mind spoilers.
So
that's fine.
I would not want to. Okay, good. Then I don't want to have to subject you to any spoilers. But
I just wanted to know how I should phrase that. I really loved Loden Greatstorm.
Yeah, no, that's not a spoiler for me. But
listen,
yeah.
Okay, here's what I'm going to say. I'm not 100% prepared to put the past tense on that because it's Star Wars and I'm in denial, and I can't let him be gone. I took that personally. But that said, I think Elzar Mann is probably my favorite. Became my favorite very quickly, because through him. And one of the things I do like about this era that kind of really ties in well with Elzar's character is that even though this is kind of the Jedi at the peak of their Jedihood, Jedi-dom, they actually feel like the heroes they were made to sound like in the original trilogy. Through Elzar Mann, you kind of really do get to see the cracks in the Jedi Order that were definitely there before the Clone War. And I think it's really interesting and important pointing that element out, that there are just elements of the Jedi philosophy that will kind of lead it to ruin when they're not kept in check and not kind of tended to. And, the way that, like in Light in the Jedi, where Elzar Mann's like, okay, yeah, you could say mind touch all you want. Like, maybe we should rebrand this power for all of its, questionable ethics. Stuff like that, stuff with, as we're going to get into with Rising Storm, the relationship he has with these like apocalyptic visions, and him and his newfound relationship with the dark side. I think he's incredibly fascinating. I think that the way that they portray him as I've said on this show before, and I will say until the day I die, I don't like the concept of the Gray Jedi. I don't think it makes much sense. When you put it up to how the Force is meant to be interpreted, I don't think it is conducive to anything that is said by Lucas, Filoni, what have you. That said, seeing a Jedi touch the darkness in a really, really terrifying way and be able to kind of like psych himself back out of it to some degree was really nice to see, especially just because we've seen a lot of in canon lately Jedi who touch the dark side for like a second and then go absolutely off the rails moments later, like a Seer Junda type. stuff like that. But yeah, so Molly, I'll kick to you first. Overall thoughts on The Rising Storm.
I loved it so much. I love books that feel like they just go by so quickly, and like really fast-paced stuff going on in this book. Like it goes from 0 to 60 and then it stays at 60 for like the entire read. So I love books that are kind of like that.
That's a good way of putting it.
But yeah, I love seeing just how flexible the Jedi are in this time. And you're right, like when they do kind of waver into the dark side a little bit, it's really interesting to see how they deal with it and just their whole mindset when that kind of stuff happens. And I love Markion so much. He's like the coolest villain to me, and I can't wait to find out more about him. And that's one thing about The Rising Storm that I was like, oh, I wish we got more Markion, but I know it's coming, and I'm ready for it. And well, yeah, Loden Greatstorm. That was just a punch to everyone's gut. That it was a really hard pill to swallow. Cavan knows what he did, and he will never hear the end of it.
So close. He was so close. He was
everyone
so close.
Everyone keeps dogpiling on Cavan for good reason, but I do want to point out, like, I recently interviewed Daniel Jose Older, and I kind of put it to him. I was like, I mean, you all knew, and you did nothing. And I do think that they all deserve some blame. They all planned that together. So yeah, Cavan was the one that put the words onto the paper and really did it in a way where it's like, yeah, it's the last page and it's going to hurt you bad. So he deserves the blame for that. But I also think they all know what they did.
I first of all want to say thank you for holding them all accountable. You're doing the Force's work on that one. So Molly, I was in the same boat you were for Light of the Jedi for a very long time. I was like super into Markion Ro. I was like, this is like a really cool, almost got like the Dark Knight Rises Bane vibes and that very, like anarchist, Gotham is yours type mentality, but on a galactic scale. And then I very quickly didn't feel that way about him. I like my villains, the Twitter handle is a Dark Jedi for a reason. I like my Darksiders. I've never, and I've said this before, and I'm gonna, this will be the last time I say it about Phase 2, because this is the actual episode where I should be saying it. I have never been made to feel this much hatred for a Star Wars villain ever. Like, I went from like, oh, he's such a fascinating villain to like, oh, I can't wait till somebody gets their hands on you. And it's so weird because the thing I love the most about this era is these like super heroic Jedi. But part of me wishes there was some unhinged son of a bitch like Anakin Skywalker kicking around right now. Like all you need is one Anakin to hunt him down, right? Like you just need one unhinged lunatic. Like you'd have a few during the Clone War who could come after Markion and, bring him to justice. And we'll use that term a little loosely because we all know it wouldn't quite be justice. But like I kept using the joke with the a time to kill. Like, yes, I hope he dies. Yes, I think he deserves to die. I hope he burns in hell. Like I can't wait for something terrible to happen to Markion Ro. And well, I can't believe I'm saying that because normally I'm very sympathetic for the baddies.
I think you're probably right in that's going to happen, and that's probably part of the Jedi's fall, is that like, how do you combat someone like that? And I mean, we even saw it in The Rising Storm a bit where Elzar Mann, they do that trick where he kind of goes to the dark side, and they're like, "Whoa, everyone, calm down here!" But really, he's just playing it up to trick the Nile, and they might keep doing stuff like that. And it's like you're kind of towing a line there, and maybe it needs to be done to fight someone like Markion, but it's probably part of the Jedi losing their way.
Yeah. Markion, we talk about Battlestar a lot on our shows, and Markion reminds me a lot of Gaius Baltar, where like the first time we watched Battlestar and you see his arc, you're just like, oh my God, what a jerk. He's so bad, and he's so hard to watch some of the time. But like by the end of it, and on like the second rewatch of Battlestar, I was like, okay, I get his whole story arc. But there were some times there where I was like, come on, Gaius, really?
Gaius is way better than Markion. Like,
I'm waiting for
Markion
Markion's
is doing evil
story.
things on purpose.
Yeah, but I feel like his story might be a similar kind of like, I don't know. Maybe it'll come back around, and
we might be more sympathetic to him as we learn more.
Yeah.
I mean, Charles Soule is going to have that story, the comic series about Markion coming. So, and I think it'll be about his history.
Yeah, I do think he's crazy, but I like my crazies. So.
Phenomenal villain, like, and it's one of those things. Like I said that, and for a minute, like one of my friends was like, "Oh, like you don't like the character?" Like, no, amazing character. Like he is phenomenally written. Like we're talking like top 10, maybe top 5 Star Wars villains of all time. I want him to die a terrible death. Like,
oh, for sure.
Like, they're doing their job with this villain that it's just like nothing but malice and frustration when he's on the page. I was trying to explain like the High Republic era to some friends and like what this era of storytelling is like, and trying to explain this hilarious mix of this is the Jedi at their most hopeful, juxtaposed with every book involves a like a horrific mass casualty event. I remember whenever they announced Wave 3, and Arzu Min was like posting about, oh God, what do they mean by like falling star? Oh God. And I just kept like replying to it in all caps, just mass casualty event. Like that's like every one of these books, like you just need to that's all that you just gotta go in. You gotta steel yourself ready for a lot of people to die. Alex, favorite part of the Rising Storm, like on the whole, like if you had to go in there for one.
I mean, the moment that still sticks with me is obviously Loden's death, and the whole end I thought was so masterfully written, because I could tell. I was reading it on my Kindle, and it said like you're 99% of the way through. You have 3 minutes left in this chapter, and like every page turn, I was like, come on, Bell, come on, Loden, you got this, you can do it, it's gonna be fine. And then like the last few words, so like that obviously sticks out so much to me. But I also thought that everything on the Republic Fair was so good and written to be so horrific, but also very cinematic. That's something I think both novels so far have been really, really great, is that like you can just see this stuff playing out in your head, where it's like Porter Ingle just jumped onto a vector, and now they're like all flying in formation, and he's riding one of them, and I loved all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the image in my head of like the moment Stellan kind of like dug into his robes and like drew the second lightsaber.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't get the like the moment in the Rebels season 1 finale where Kanan just puts it all on the table against the Grand Inquisitor. Like part of me felt like, in any type of like you said, the cinematic nature of it, that watching it, that like the music cues, and it would almost be shot exactly the same way. And just like the stark colors, because they're all in their like ceremonial pretty outfits. So like the blues and the greens and the white and the gold, like, oh my, it's such an incredible moment. I think I'm also kind of there with you with like the end and just the raid on the Nile home base and that like dread of like I'm running out of pages, something good needs to happen. Like we're running out of road, we need to come up with something. And like because I listen to the audiobook versions.
I do too.
And like the production quality speaks for itself. It's incredible.
Mhm.
And like seeing like you got 20 minutes left of the book and it's like Loden's still in the shit. Like I don't what do you mean I got 20 minutes, man? Waiting for there to be like that resolution and this
It's just so awful the way he did it. The way that like the way he reunites with Belle and they're
Yeah.
like, oh my god. Well, Belle knows that Loden's here. It's like, oh my god, he's still alive. And then I think Loden like jumps or falls off of a high place, and then Belle gets to be the one to catch him, and then they're fighting together with their lightsabers, and you're like, this is the best. I'm so happy. And then he just pulls it all away from you again.
I was going to say, I think my favorite part of this entire book was just Loden's entire escape. Like, despite, yes, what happens in the end sucks, but like, I think my favorite part was just reading his escape from start to finish. And like, that was just so cool and exciting, which made what happens even harder.
Well, one of the reasons I think Loden is so great, and what I think is important about the end of the book, is that Loden spent a year being tortured and he didn't fall to the dark side. And it's like he's the best Jedi ever, and now they lost him. And but his escape being part of that, like I never got the sense that he went dark. He was just like, nope, I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna get back with my friends. But now they lost him.
And that was the other thing was that like, and maybe it was, you know, like going off of the audiobook and the like, just how, you know, heart racing, like what the hell is going on, was that like the verbiage it uses, like the way it describes Loden's death, and like they just kind of come upon the body as though he's been like petrified.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know, and then maybe I'm the idiot there where I was just like, I can't tell if they're like literally like this, like motherfucker was turned to stone, or if it's like no, he's like stone cold dead, and I'm like, either way, I don't care. I'm sad, and I would like to have a conversation with Mr. Scott. And
it made
like
me
you said, they all enabled him.
Yeah, it made me think of The Ring and like all the people that die in the movie The Ring, and like that's how you find them, just like terrified with their mouths open. And I was like, oh no.
And then he turns to dust and crumbles.
And then he just disintegrates, and you're just like, really?
Oh shit, I forgot about the disintegration. Oh god damn it. Oh. I just had like the image of him looking very phenomenal way of putting it, Molly, with like looking all the ringed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, oh god, I'm depressed again now. God damn it. He's just such a cool character. He didn't deserve to die like that. And that was the thing, was like as everybody's like finishing the book like within like a day of each other, like, you know, Star Wars Twitter is just lighting up with like the @Kevin Scott, you son of a bitch. Like everybody's like tweeting the same thing, and I'm like, what the hell happened at the end of the book?
Yeah.
Right. And I get to the end, and I'm like, oh, Loden's gonna like fall to his death, or Markion Ro's gonna kill him with his own lightsaber. You know, like I'm like preparing for something just traditionally Star Warsy and horrific. And so I'm like, what the hell happened? You know, I was starting to think, like, did people just get really upset about the scientist lady's daughter like betraying them? Like, is that what people, or is everybody still like really upset because of Valo? I was like, oh, okay. Oh my god. No. Like I was like, I can't remember the last time I was like actively yelling back at an audiobook.
Yeah.
like for some reason it normally doesn't happen. It rarely happens when I'm watching TV or a movie where I start having a one-sided conversation. But from their invasion on, like it was a back and forth between me and my phone, and I'm like I will own that. that I was way too sucked into it.
I remember, Alex, you told me about the Load and Great Storm Twitter account because
yeah.
we get the books a little early, and so we knew what was going to happen before a lot of other people did. And Alex was like, "Yeah, there's this Load and Great Storm Twitter account that I just am going to be very sad for
It's
in a
just
couple of
at
months."
Load and Great Storm. Yeah. Well, it was.
Thank you.
I'd seen at Load and Great Storm on Twitter a couple times, and just knowing they were a big fan of the character, and the second that happened, I was like, "Oh no!" But then I followed them specifically to see what happened. I felt a little guilty about that, but
Okay, I just found it, and as we're talking about this, the pinned tweet currently is from the 17th. It says, "Hi friends, just want to let you know I may be inactive for the next few months." And I didn't read any further. I was like, I wonder why. No, okay, congratulations on your internship, Loden. I looked down and I saw that. I was like, "Ugh." Anyway, that's funny as shit. But yeah, going back a little bit to the actual attack on Valo, I really thought for a minute Lena So was toast.
Yep.
And being like a comic book guy, the image that is painted with the description of Stel and Geos like holding the unconscious Lena So, my brain first went, and I know the relationship is completely different, but like the iconography, like I almost like couldn't get the image of the like Death of Gwen Stacy panel with like Stellan like having that like with him just freaking out and coming unglued.
it's similar. The one that I jumped to was Aomer finding Eowyn in Return of the King, just like cradling someone and screaming and crying. It's basically the same kind of image.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just went like it just gave me chills, and I'm just so impressed that they made me hate space pirates. Like I didn't think me as a person was capable of like wholeheartedly just wanting all of them dead. And as much as I've been joking about it since The Rising Storm came out, Alex, I really hope that you're right. That like this is the beginning of the end for the Jedi, that one of them crosses the line between Keeper of the Peace and Vigilante.
Mm-hmm.
And that there's this kind of a like, well, what else were we supposed to do? And
Right.
Everybody just kind of like unilaterally co-signs the brutal execution by Jedi. Because desperate times, desperate measures type excuses. What do you guys think is next for Elzar Mann? Because I'm worried. I'm worried about it.
He might be the one to do exactly what you were just saying. That's exactly
right.
where I thought it was headed in The Rising Storm, and then it was just like a gotcha moment. But I still think that he might be the one to. I like the term vigilante. Become like a Jedi vigilante.
I think that feels like the obvious choice, so it kind of makes me hope that it's Vernestra or something.
I mean, it could be after what happened. It could be Bell.
Right. Oh yeah, Bell. If he's not just straight up catatonic, poor Bell.
I know. I love Bell so much.
Elzar, I really love the moment where he does go dark and like everyone senses it, and it's no real judgment from all the other Jedi. They're like, oh, he needs a hug. Like, we need to check in on him and make sure he's okay. It's not like, well, that's it for Elzar. We got to kick him out of the Jedi Order. Stellan is like mentally planning a vacation for them to Jeddah so that he can just get rebalanced. So I really like the way that Elzar's...
Jedi bros.
Yeah. I like the way that he touches darkness, and he knows that it was wrong and wants to fix it, and B, the other Jedi are like still accepting of him. So I kind of hope that they keep using him as almost a red herring, where it seems like he'll be the one to go off the deep end, but I kind of want it to be someone else, just to come out of left field. I'll throw down Vernestra, because Vernestra seems like, the new best of us that everyone looks up to, and she might be the one. I don't know.
Okay, so like I said before we started, and I've said on the show, I'm super behind on the comics.
Sorry.
No, you're good. I'm out. I like my studio's like separate from my house, so you'd be hearing my dogs as well. I cannot.
Hila just has some very strong thoughts about Vernestra, and
Oh, I don't blame. So because I'm super behind on the comics, I don't know exactly what the hell is going on with this whole Keith Trennis as a part of the Nile now thing. I'm assuming it's some type of deep cover operation of some sort, but it is basically in stone that she is a part of the Lost 20. Whether or not the Lost 20 means there are only 20 Jedi who have ever left the Order, or it's like past a certain rank, like the definition of whom the 20 are is super weird.
It's Jedi Masters specifically.
Okay, cool. Thank you. That's what I thought, but I wasn't 100% sure.
So like Ahsoka is not a member of the Lost 20.
Yeah.
Anakin wouldn't be, because he never got the rank of Master.
That said, I think since Keeve just got knighted, and I know that, I think that could be her, like, I'm going to put him down and then I'm going to leave, because, like, I've been in the muck that is the Nile personally, and that could, I would be stunned if that does not have a lasting consequence on her psychologically, having been deeply embedded with the same people who caused all kinds of carnage on Valo. So I think Keeve is a possible suspect for, if it goes in the direction we're thinking, that I truly hope it does. Not just because of the, think they deserve to die, hope burn in hell, but just because I think it would be a really interesting story beat. Or I think it might be Jedi Superman. I think it might be Stellan Gios.
I can see that too.
that would be a really great just fall from the top kind of situation.
Yeah. Like I can almost see like the very beginning of Endgame in that like very unceremonious way that Thor just executes Thanos.
Mm-hmm.
That Stellan is like just finally pushed to the brink by Markion and just can't do it anymore. and it
might be like televised or something that the whole galaxy, and then like the perception of the Jedi is forever changed.
Yeah. Yikes.
That would be so great. Goddamn cool. I have full faith that it's going to be cool as shit no matter whom is writing what and how it happens, but Stellan being the one to do that very like street justice way of handling Markion Row. And like, by the time we get to, pardon me, by the time we get to Out of the Shadows, like Stellan really seems changed by all of this. Like there's like, it just feels like there's like a wall around him as a person, and he's just so in the weeds more than he ever was. And I don't know, I feel like being the one to like hold the presumed dead for a moment Chancellor in your arms, I don't know how that doesn't even the most devout Jedi have like a little bit of their brain that's like, I got to put you down for this.
Mm-hmm.
That there's just a part of them, just that like I keep making like Marvel comparisons, just have that like like Zemo in Civil War, like there's a little bit of green in the blue of your eyes type moment between Markion and Stellan, where he's like, "Oh, it's like you're the poster boy for the Jedi now. You're welcome for that."
Yeah.
And Markion just rubbed that in, where he's like, "I gave you all the prominence in the galaxy. Like you owe me, man. Like, what's up?"
I think that they've done a cool job of taking all of like the best Jedi. We got Avar, Stellan, Elzar, but also showing kind of there are some faults. There's some pride in all of them, and
Yeah,
some overconfidence, and seeing the way that they could fall and how that's going to affect the next generation, like Bell and Vern and Keeve, and just how then they might affect the next generation. Because we have kind of 3 generations of Jedi going on right now. So I'm wondering if we're going to watch some of them grow all the way up, and like Keeve, who just got knighted, that maybe we'll get a time jump, and then in phase 2 she could be a master, and then in phase 3 she could leave. And we can also see like Lula and Zine from the High Republic Adventures comics. They grow up and become knights and masters or whatever. I think we could kind of see how like this is also a generational fall.
Which is really cool as to like how these books are coming out also generationally. Like you get the young reader book and the young adult book and then the adult novel or whatever. It's so cool that they're releasing them that way with these different levels, so that the people reading it can kind of grow up with all these characters in the same way. So I love that about these books.
Yeah, the interconnectedness of all of this stuff, where, like I said, like I'm super behind on the comics. I didn't even know Lula and Zine were in the High Republic Adventures. Like I knew those names. I knew I had heard them before. I couldn't remember at what point they would have come into play. Like you said, it's just so perfectly interwoven, and jumping over to Crashpoint Tower here, the order I read / listened to these was Rising Storm, Out of Shadows, Crashpoint, and I knew Crashpoint Tower was happening like at basically the same time as Rising Storm, but I was like, this one's going to be shorter, so I'm going to do it last. I really badly want to go back and kind of go back and forth between listening to them now. Because it was really fun seeing another character we haven't touched on, another one of my favorites, Yorick. I have always loved the Ventress in the Clone Wars and in Legends with Kyle Katarn, that like scoundrel who's also a powerful Jedi type character has always just been something I've loved always. So seeing the character like Yorick, who's just a whole vibe and everything is just cool as shit. A phrase you will hear me use a lot talking about the High Republic, cool as shit. Like seeing like the other side of that, where Ram's just like, do you a Jedi? Right? And you just get that other side of the whole thing, that very like off camera, like it's almost like how the Plagueis novel is with the Phantom Menace, where it's that you get that fun moment where if you just turn the camera a little bit to the left, there's Hugo Damask, right? Where it's like kind of the same thing here. Like if you just shift the camera a little bit, here's Ram just like over in the corner right before the terror attack happens. And it's just so brilliant. And the coordination here is just ingenious. Like everybody deserves to be commended for how well everything is just gelling together and how precious and adorable all the characters in Crashpoint Tower are. I didn't really realize until I finished Crashpoint that Wave 2 of Phase 1 was very much the Vernestra Rowe chapter of this story, and I love her as well. She's again, she's just one of those ones like, man, they could have used more of you whenever the movies happen. Like you,
I think she's
Yeah.
going to be big. I think she's going to be big in the next wave, or maybe phase, especially with what happens at the end of Out of the Shadows.
I'm loving the. Actually, I can thank Alex for this because he suggested that I read Crashpoint first, and then Rising Storm, and then now I'm into Out of the Shadows. I love having read it in this order because I really appreciated everything that I got from Crashpoint when I was in Rising Storm, and I feel like that's a good arc to read for Nestra's kind of story between these three books.
yeah,
So
I couldn't agree more. Moving into Out of the Shadows a little bit here, I I really think Justina Ireland made an excellent choice as a writer and as a storyteller to never try to fool anybody with Xylan Graph. Like
Yeah.
at no point was there ever like a concerted effort like we're really going to try to make you think he's a good guy. It's just like throughout the story, and I feel bad at this point because now you're going to be moving into spoilers for you, Molly. I know you said you don't care, but
I
Alex
think
probably
I told
has
her some
already.
major stuff
Yeah.
already.
like,
Hard to
it's-
avoid.
Yeah, that's fair. The further you move into the book, into the story, you get like Xylan Graf just becomes a shittier person. Like there's no big reveal at any point because like halfway through the Jedi are like, okay, he's working with the Nile. Like we're like all that's missing is like one of the Jedi just sitting him down going, we're not fucking stupid. Like it's all that's missing is your Criffing, whatever space curse you want to use there. Is somebody just looking him in the eyes and being like, how stupid do you think we are? Because this all reeks of you got the Gungan whacked. This all reeks of like you're behind everything. But so like I like that there was never really an attempt to be like, oh yeah, he's absolutely upstanding businessman. He's oh yeah. I love that. I love whatever like a storyteller like I don't want to use the term like respects the audience because I think that's a little hoity-toity and annoying. But like there's just that level of like, you know this twist is coming. I know this twist is coming. I'm not going to try to deceive you. Let's all just bask in the head up the acidness that is Xylan Graf.
What's so obvious, I think maybe it's like you kind of wonder, is this a red herring? And it's like, no, he just progressively tries less and less to cover anything up. Like the first meeting with, and it's been like 2 months now since I've read this, but his first meeting with the main character, her name is escaping me.
Sai?
Not
Sylvester Yarrow.
Sylv. I was like, it's not Sal, Syl. He comes off as like, I'm trying to be helpful, and like, yeah, progressively through it, it's like, no, I'm just trying to help myself.
Yeah. Well, and he has this like slightly like that tiny bit. I'm not even gonna say redemption, but just like holding up his end of the bargain, where he's like, here's this crew, here's this hauler, which is just basically a bunch of floating guns. Like the way they describe, I can't remember the name of it, it's like Merciless something. But they're very clear, just like this is a floating blaster. Enjoy. I also with this one, Wreath is adorable, and on the list of I swear to God, if anything terrible happens to Wreath, we're like we all just need to collectively agree we're rioting if anything happens to Wreath. But I really like him and Vern as a unit. Like that was like whenever I saw they were going to be kind of like leading the charge in this one, I was like, okay, I like this pairing based off of what I've read already. I really like putting these two on a team together. and it was something I was excited for that somehow worked even better than I was expecting.
Yeah, they play really well off of each other.
Yeah, and there's just you have the prodigal knight and the Padawan who'd rather stay home. Like that's just such a fun pairing.
I like the way that Wreath and Ram are like these different kind of Jedi who are like, I just want to do this one thing, but I have to like go out into the galaxy and do this other thing. Correct me if I'm wrong. Does he also have a bit of a crush on Vern?
Yes.
Okay.
He has a very funny moment in the cafeteria of Starlight Beacon where he's like, to quote Connor, Wreath is down horrendously because he had his hilarious Nile crush in Into the Dark, and then immediately he's like, "Man, Vern's really cute. Damn it, God, I'm bad at this Jedi shit. I gotta stop." It's just funny, and the way that like he's like clearly making puppy dog eyes at her while they're sparring. Where it's like, oh, buddy, you're precious.
I love all the like little crushes between characters, especially like the Jedi, because it's like that stuff's going on. They didn't really talk about it much in any other Star Wars stuff, but like they're not beating around anything with these books.
God.
And the love affair.
Is a dog.
His like, oh, now I know why there's so many layers to these robes. I love that line.
Yes.
I remember like Elzar started talking to that reporter. I was like I paused the book and I like out loud said to myself, I'm like, if Elzar does not sleep with this woman, I'm going to be so upset. Like you have like Kevin, throw me a bone here. This is gonna be, no pun intended, be the funniest shit ever. And
the fact that there are like Jedi romance novels in the galaxy, that's something that normal people also
everyone wants to see it. Thank you for finally giving it to Star Wars fans.
It's so funny. It's like, I don't know why it's so hilarious though. Because I mean, and granted, like a lot of it has to do with like, hey, we have Rael Avaros to thank, going all the way back to Master and Apprentice, and him like that, like maybe one of the funniest things I've ever read or listened to with a Star Wars book is him going, listen, they said you can't form attachments. And the way he's like very clear, like puts his foot down to Qui-Gon, or he's like, listen, man, do whatever the hell I want. It's so perfect. And I'm glad that they set that precedent. Part of me is convinced that Claudia Gray, like ahead of time, was like, we know how horny the High Republic Jedi are going to be. So we're just going to set the precedent now that there's a guy in the Clone War who's just, gallivanting his way through Pygel. But I also just want to say, and, I'm sure we're getting to the point here soon where we're going to have like them do something meaningful with it. I cannot get over just the incredible representation that has been throughout the High Republic. Like the fact that Out of Shadows is centered on a queer couple. Silvestri, with the amount of times that she kind of like pauses to comment on the fact, I have to keep checking it to make sure I'm saying his name correctly. Xylan Graf. The way that like she repeatedly says like Xylan Graf's a good looking dude. Like I hate him, but like he's hot. So she's like clearly bi, and obviously she's in a relationship with Jordana. Like it's just this is what Star Wars should look like. Is that it's just like like all manner of like people who look different, be it either because people actually look different and also friggin' aliens. It just makes me very happy seeing all of it so blown up to scale and it being at the center of the story. Also, Jordana and Silvestri's relationship is so funny and so adorable. And as enthralled as I've been with the very, very Jedi-centric stories of the High Republic, that's how I am with Star Wars most of the time, is that if there aren't lightsabers and if there aren't force wielders, the bar of excitement for me is a little harder to get up. It's Star Wars, so I'm going to be into it no matter what. But give me my laser swords and my space magic, and I'm in even more.
Mm-hmm.
With the High Republic, I think this is the only like non-force wielder centered story I would want to see like continue on its own. As I would very much like to see what Jordana and Silvestri get up to after this story. Also, the Lightning Horn Cat is precious.
Well, I think I wanted to touch on what you said about representation, but I think they definitely, and again, talking with Daniel Jose Older, all 5 of them have made it like a big priority for them to introduce, different races, different sexualities. And I always credit Daniel Jose Older for introducing me to the they them pronouns. Like that, the first time I learned about that was from Last Shot. And like that's why I think it is important to put stuff like that in Star Wars, because it educates people. Where I was confused by the non-binary character, Tack, I think. And I was like, why do they keep saying they them? Like, I don't understand what gender this person is. And then like I Googled it and I was like, oh, now I understand. And like now I learned something, and I'm glad I had that like in a private moment and not a public one. I was like, oh, I had never heard that before.
Yeah. I mean, there have been several, like there were the non-binary twins in the comics, I believe. And the weird like cloud Jedi is also non-binary, because I thought that was interesting as well, because like you also like you're in space, like how are things like, how the shit do you gender a cloud? Like there's just like practical levels to that where it's like culturally it's all going to be so different because space, space fantasy, whatever. It just makes me happy just seeing everything be so wide, and it makes it feel more real too. I don't know how else to put it, but
the Star Wars galaxy lends itself to things like this. Like, yes, we should see all these different looking species. Yes, we should see all the non-binary and the queer relationships going on, because this is a very vast galaxy we're talking about, and none of this stuff should be strange to hear about.
Absolutely. What do you guys moving okay also, and mostly because I know you made a video about it recently, I am so glad I saw you post the Yaddle talking in not inverted syntax video before I got to it, because that would have given me so much whiplash if I didn't know that going in. Because I was like, Yaddle, huh? And then I got to it because I was like, well, I'm assuming it's one of the ones I haven't listened to yet. Little did I know I was like an hour away from hearing it whenever I like saw the video go up. And I was just like, this is weird. I don't know why this person speaking normally is weirder than them speaking backwards.
What's it like in the audiobook? Like, does she still sound kind of Yoda-ish? Like with
they don't try to put any like on it at all. Like it's just straight up just, oh, hi Vern. Like it's just like
that's even weirder.
Well, Out of the Shadows, the audiobook for Out of the Shadows confused me a little bit at first, because it doesn't have as much of the production value as the other ones.
Not at all.
It's voices and sound effects and stuff goes. But yeah, it was just played to be totally normal. and after I read it, I tweeted about it and I was like, this is raising so many questions and I love it.
I don't want to necessarily be like, all right, that is Yaddle's canon voice and they must adhere to it. But that is funny to me that no one was like, make sure you give Yaddle a little bit of that Yoda flair. even if she doesn't talk out of order.
A little sprinkle of inverted syntax in there.
Yeah.
That's so funny. And yeah, that was one of the other things that like it was really jarring listening to Out of the Shadows, because like you were saying, it does not like there's no music, there's no sound effects, there's no like voice modulating at all for like whenever a Nile's speaking through their helmet. Which I very quickly realized made this one, like I didn't realize how much the sound effects and the music and the so on and so forth really make it like it's very easy to stay engaged
Yeah.
with the audiobooks, because that's why I like them, is that I can multitask, I can get multiple things done while also staying caught up with the canon. And this one I had several times I was like, I just need to only listen to this one because it's harder to keep track. I don't know. And you'd think it'd be more distracting having, like the Force theme playing every 30 seconds and, the lightsabers. And for some reason, it's harder to stay like on target.
Yeah, it adds a lot. And you're right. Like when I'm still listening to it and it was like, oh, this one's a little harder to pay attention to without all that stuff. So, yeah.
What do we think is happening? Oh God, this is so spoilery. I know you said you don't care, but I apologize because
I probably already told her.
I feel dirty saying it. It's like Travis. He does not give a damn about spoilers, and I'm like, I don't want to say anything. I know you don't care. What happens next now that Mari Sintek is gone?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that the Nile are not going to be the major like whole 3 phases villain. Markion might be, but I think the Nile are probably done for. And I mean, how do you feel about comic spoilers?
Let me go for it. I need to get caught up anyway, and I see them. I see them floating around on Twitter, so I'm all ears.
The Dringir, as of now, there's an avenue for them to come back, but for right now, they are defeated. I'll be surprised if they don't come back in Wave 3, honestly. But I think that we've been set up to expect the Nile and the Dringir to be like these 2 big ol' problems for the entire High Republic era. I don't think that's how it's going to play out. I think that by the end of Phase 1, the Nile will effectively be done, even if Markion is still out there. So, yeah, I think that Mari Santeca is just another nail in that coffin, because now they aren't going to be able to get paths. And that's a big thing about how they operate at all.
Mm-hmm.
That part surprised me. And I've also really enjoyed the through line of Mari reaching out to these Jedi in like those brief moments, like she does with Loden, and she does several times with Vern, and also the light speed vision thing is just so goddamn cool. And I cannot wait. I am so hoping for Vernestra Rowe and Elzar Mann to be in the same book and then both start having the same vision.
Ooh.
And for them both to kind of start tripping about it. And for Emery to be the one to be like, why are you two freaking out about the same thing right now and not talking about it?
Yeah.
I really want to put Emery in a room of like both of them just kind of having that quiet, like, because both of them are like the Jedi version of like the dog in the burning building. Like, this is fine, version, but for a Jedi. I want to see all of that collide. But I think you're right. Like, I was really expecting the Nile to be the villain of this era. And granted, if they truly want to fill out the full 400 years we have up to Phantom Menace, it would be kind of insane if it was the same band of pirates for that long. Mm-hmm. It just surprises me. But, when you say that, like, when you think about it, how much gas do they really have in the tank? Like, between the Legacy Run, Emergence, Calamity, and Valo, which I love that like this whole era of Jedi just has like this one shared traumatic experience. Like that's just such a brilliant thing for these characters to have. You know, like we were talking about earlier, it shows how they will eventually kind of start to waver.
I think the idea is that also there hasn't been a war in 1,000 years.
Yeah.
So when we get to the Phantom Menace, it's like the galaxy's been at peace for 1,000 years. The Sith are gone. So if the Nile are like going to continue to be a threat, it's like, well, isn't that kind of a war? It's like I think they're going to be this little blip in history of the Nile came up and they were terrible and they made horrific attacks, but we dealt with them pretty quickly. But it leads to something worse. It sounds like Markion doesn't care about the Nile. He's happy to use them and lose them. And that's why I think he might stick around. He might be the Palpatine of the High Republic, like pulling strings and running around. But I don't see him or the Nile as going on for that whole ride.
It's super cheesy to say this out loud, but it's like the villain is, you know, inside yourself all along. We are our own villains. And so that makes sense because by the time we get to the prequels, you know, everything is so strict. And it's like, that's probably because of everything that happened up until that point. They had to get super strict with everything and start, you know, maybe these prophecies are exactly what they are on paper. And
it's death by 1,000 cuts, and I think the Nile and the Drengir are like a few of those cuts. And we'll see whatever the leveler is certainly going to be far worse, I think.
Oh man. The leveler is so bonkers.
They're gonna let that thing loose on Starlight Beacon.
Yep, falling star. That Starlight Beacon. It's gonna fall.
It's gonna be ugly. All gonna die. So here's a couple things I want to bounce off from what you guys were saying. First, and maybe this is just like the way Legends was framed. That part of my brain has not been able to let this go since the Nile were like announced and we're being told about, you know, what they're up to, what they do, their whole thing. I don't think that the Nile are directly working for the in-hiding Sith.
Yeah.
But I cannot shake the feeling that the Sith have their fingers in this in some way, shape, or form. Like whatever the rule of two Sith that are in hiding, like just that whole, you know, we are a contagion. We are, you know, we're trading in our armor for robes, cloak and dagger type mentality. Again, that's all Legend stuff. And we don't know exactly like what the mentality behind like the rule of two and all of that is in this canon. But there is a part of me that feels like that like the way the Sith kind of like infiltrated elite galactic society, that there was that, you know, like they had like the Sith controlled the banks, you know, like that, like in Legends, like that, like they just had that kind of power and influence. There's a part of me that has such a hard time believing that there isn't a prominent individual who is secretly a Sith Lord who isn't like somehow in some way under the table just, hey, here's a couple million credits, go level a planet, you know, go, you know, draw out the Jedi, use the big guns, kill a few. That like I am not going to be surprised if by the end of phase 1, where if you're right, and I think you are at this point, the Nile are the big bad of just phase 1. I will not be surprised if there is some epilogue where there's like Darth whatever that is a Sith of like, in the grand scheme of things, no real consequence, that just has their like ha 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 ha, you know, the day I gave Markion Ro the idea to like use a star cruiser as a battering ram, was the day that like all hell broke loose, and here are all the tiny little ways our machinations got to fall into place because the Republic Fair was attacked, because of the chaos with the Gravity's Heart. That like it's not that they're making it happen, they're just kind of like gently pushing in the right direction and then taking advantage, kind of coming up around the back end in whatever way that they can. Like there's just a part of me that's like the Sith are doing something, that like the Sith are involved, and you know, do my like Always Sunny in Philadelphia, you know, Pepe Sylvia, you know, cork board, trying to find where it intersects with a Sith Lord. But that's just me on that one. I could be completely wrong, but part of me is like, and the Acolyte, like part of me feels like this is like all like they said Acolyte's going to take place during the High Republic. And every time I remember that sentence, I get giddy. Eventually we're going to see this shit in live action. But it's the tail end, so most of these characters will be long dead by then, and that's fine. But like the way the art for the show is, like I just get the vibe that is going to be our here's what's going on with the rule of two.
Mhm.
I think I agree with you there. I'm like not. I trust the authors so that if they bring the Sith in, I'm like on board. But I'm also really into the idea that the Sith are just kind of like doing what they're doing, amassing power or whatever. But I like the idea that they're like, this Nile stuff is sure helpful for us, and I mean, we'll let them keep doing whatever they're doing, and we'll take advantage of it. But I like the idea that, you know, Palpatine is eventually able to manipulate the Jedi into the Clone Wars and take control. Not really because of anything the Sith ever did, but just that's how the Jedi went with all of these other problems.
Yeah.
I'll be fine if we learn that, yeah, Sith had been pulling the strings the whole time, but
and like I've never been able to like quite articulate that, because I don't want to be that they're pulling the strings. I don't want like the Nihil to be the like a puppet army of the Sith.
Mm-mm.
You know, like I don't want it to be like the Sith are all over it, but
right.
just like that, like they knew what was gonna happen before it happened, and they were like, all right, this planet's gonna get fucking toasted. Like, how do we take advantage of this?
Mm-hmm.
It's like the Sith are suggesting which strings are there.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, like I don't know how to explain it, but I can't let go of the feeling that they're involved somehow, and that's just me.
I think it would be really cool if in one of the books that we get down the line, like maybe the last chapter of the book is just titled Exegol. Like I keep waiting for that to happen, and I really hope that it does. That we just get transported completely in another direction from whatever story we're reading about, and it's like, boom, here's a chapter from Exegol, end of book.
See, like I would love it if they did that, but the two Sith are there that are just like, have you heard what's going on in the like that's crazy.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Is that like you have like the Dark Lord of like whomever is the reigning Dark Lord, and then their apprentice is the one who's like the face of whatever they're doing, and they just come sprinting in, and they're like, "Okay, you're not gonna believe this shit. You thought we were crazy. You don't know." Like he calls it the Leveler. He dusted a man. What the shit? Like that very, the way that these stories are unintentionally funny if you explain them with like when you try to explain some of these stories with a straight face, they become very funny. The one I always come back to is Labyrinth of Evil is accidentally like the funniest Star Wars story of all time. Like when you remove all the drama from it, of just having that moment of Palpatine going, "Okay, Newt Gunray shit the bed. Dooku, listen to me well. Come kidnap me right now. You're on Coruscant. Where did I stutter? Now, bring Grievous." Like I want that so badly. Just the joke we make on this show all the time is that we want a Sithcom that is just that shit. That like the constant dysfunction that must be the dark side of everything, of just like, it's getting crazy out there. Like, they're doing our job for us. Alex, you have been up to date on the comics, and it was kind of like the last minute. I was like, hey, I don't know shit about the comics at the moment. Would you be so kind as to kind of give somewhat of a story recap with what's been going on in the High Republic comics so far? You can do that to however, whatever degree you would like to, because you're very much in the hot seat at the moment. So the floor is yours, good sir.
I would say the comics have been mostly dealing with the Dringir. So the Dringir were introduced in Into the Dark, the Wave 1 young adult novel, and then they really started to spread out in the High Republic comics, the main comics on Marvel. And they have recently been dealt with. Keeve and her master Skier both kind of like allowed themselves to be infected with the Dringir, which allowed them to get into their hive mind and find their home world. And so then they disconnected from the hive mind, but it's still affecting them, which is, I think, a really fun exploration into, like, you know, going into the dark side for good reasons, because the Dringir are very much powered by the dark side, and now they're having to deal with the consequences of that. But they've dealt with the Dringir. That's kind of it for the whole first two arcs, and now we're going to go into Keeve and what I assume is, yes, an undercover mission. There's been nothing else I've seen to suggest that she would actually join the Nile. And I haven't even read like the little summary or preview that they released. The High Republic Adventures, man, that's been a really fun and surprising series. Just because I talk about the Star Wars Adventures line. They're usually just like these cute little stories that I'm like, okay, yeah, I read that and it's fine. And that's it. Like, they're focused for a younger audience and they don't really do much for me. But the High Republic Adventures has been just as good, if not better, than the main Marvel line. It's dealing with Padawan, so it's still like got a younger slant to it, but it's very accessible to adults, has a lot of fun things to say.
Yeah.
It's basically been the story of the first arc was about two kids that were on this one planet, and the Nile take one and the Jedi take the other through, like, the Nile kidnap a kid and the other kid goes with the Jedi willingly. And those two kids were best friends growing up, but now they're obviously going on separate directions. And it's now I can't remember his name, but he's in into Out of the Shadows. Just a little bit. He's like Markion's new pet, they call him.
Yes.
Zine and not Chris. Crix.
Crix.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that's kind of his story, and Markion has kind of taken him under his wing and is, for now, mentoring him, maybe to throw him under the bus or something. I saw someone throw out the idea, because like at the end of the first arc, he gives Crix one of his eye masks, and they're like, I saw someone suggest, what if he's eventually going to give Crix to the Jedi and be like, there's the Eye of the Nile right there. And I thought that was a pretty devious idea that Markion could do. The second arc that has begun is about this. Oh, yeah. I didn't even mention that the Jedi teamed up with the Hutts to take on the Dringir, which is...
I remember that being a big point of contention with the dickhead Celestin senator.
Yeah.
Rising Storm, or every couple of seconds, the Jedi and the Hutts. Anyway.
Yeah, his voice. I made Alex listen to his voice just so I could be like, you believe this?
This is why I have to write scripts out, because my train of thought is just like, oh yeah, and also back there, the Jedi happened. And the Hutts are together. So the second arc of the High Republic Adventures so far has been about that alliance and some of the Padawans going to help negotiate with the Hutts. And then Jabba comes into play, and he's like trying to make a power grab within the Hutt Council cartel. I think
Jabba shows up.
Basically,
nice.
Yeah, just for a little bit. It's doesn't overshadow anything, which I really appreciated. It's like just the right amount.
Is he a little thinner?
Not
little
really,
younger
no.
in the eyes. No, okay.
Younger in the
Like, he's
eyes.
only in like 2 frames. He gets mentioned a lot, and then he appears for a couple frames, and that's it.
Okay.
And it's like,
I just
Jabba, your gambit failed. Well, go back to Tatooine, I guess. Like, no
Yeah.
consequences.
we saw what that throne did to Bib, so
Mhm.
I didn't know if he looked any better beforehand.
Last night, I came home really late last night, and I was like not quite tired enough to go to sleep. I was like, no, I haven't watched that making of the Mando finale thing yet. I was watching it, and I immediately felt the desire to just watch the end of the rescue, like watch the Luke stuff. It's like, man, that is so goddamn good. I went to the bathroom, came back to my room, and it was like the post-credit scene with Thick Bib, and I like forgot about Thick Bib for a second, and it has not stopped being jarring seeing Bib Fortuna with 18 chins. Like it's a lot to take in.
Yeah. That he needs his own behind the scenes, I think. Thick
Yeah.
Bib.
Just
How we kept the Bib Fortuna cameo secret.
Yes.
We said it was Plo Koon on the throne.
that was so funny. Just talking about that for a brief moment. Dave Filoni, like understanding this fandom as well as he does, that he was like, listen, they know I like this guy. And after like 1,800 leaks, and the fact that like I also love that during production they were like, well, somehow they know about Tamora and Rosario. I don't know how, but I'm not happy. So Plo Koon is in the end. Which it was a really fun watch. I highly recommend it to anybody who hasn't seen it yet. But yeah, well, I think that's all we got. I think we had a really good conversation about these 3 books. Alex, thank you for bringing everybody up to speed on the comics. From what I understand, the trade for Volume 1 is finally out, so I am going to be all over that very soon, so that I can get caught up, because I prefer to read all that kind of stuff in trade. This feels like a silly question because, like I said at the very top of the episode, you guys need no introduction. But where can the lovely people find you guys and all that you do?
Mostly on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is Star Wars Explained, and we're on Twitter at Star Wars Explain, no ED.
And I'm also there sometimes. And on Twitter at Molly Damon.
Yes. I've said it before. It's come up multiple times on different shows. On this one, you guys are the GOATs. I think that's undisputed. I don't think there's any two ways about it. You guys are kind of like, you guys do it better than anybody, in my opinion. I think that like there's never been like any negativity oozing off of what you guys do. You're the best to ever do it, and honored to have you guys on Knights of the Nerd Republic.
Thank you.
It's been a blast.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at DarkJedi2552. And you can find the Nerd Academy podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on our website, www.thenerdacademypodcast.com, where, if you're feeling generous, you can donate to our Patreon page. Speaking of our patrons, thank you to our $10 alumnus, Feige's Broomer Burner, Waffle Wizard, Delta 9, Zach Knaus, and Jarod the Light Sith. So one of our newer patrons, and Michael Armburst, has decided that they were going to do trolling names. So whenever they first subscribed last month, it was, I'm never going to give you up, never going to let you down, never going to run around or desert you, never going to make you cry, never going to say goodbye. Like all is like one word. They recently, whenever we were making a joke about it on air, they commented, "Yes, I ran out of characters. That's why there's no spaces." I was like, "Cool, thank you." And we did a collab with Comic Book Cast, and I was making another joke about that patron. And Mitch from Comic Book Cast made a joke because we were doing our Loki season 1 talk, and they made a joke that only I would want to troll myself that badly. And I was like, it's a you variant. which then resulted in them doing Jarod the Light Sith as opposed to Jarod the Dark Jedi, which it was one of those, like, I read, they deliberately misspelled my name too, which was really funny. It was like, hats off. I'm looking forward to whatever your new name is. Be sure to consider the $5 tier. We get access to Heroic History 101, the Nerd Academy Movie Club audio commentaries, and the KNR Versus series. By the time this is out, $5 patrons should have access to Darth Malak versus Mace Windu. That was a lot of fun recording that one. And then next month is going to be Coyote Mundi versus Darth Vindican. So stay tuned for all that. Be sure to subscribe to the $5 tier for that. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, rate, review, do all the things. We are honored that you have joined us, and may the Force be with you always.
Stop! Move away from the cookie jar!